AI is only half the problem. The other half of the problem is most people on these entertainment sites and these social networking sites, they care a lot more about being entertained than they do about the people they're interacting with. So what ends up happening is you'll see people put a time limit or a statute of limitations on how long you're allowed to not fuck with a certain content creator because of something they said or did. You'll also see people go out of their way to, as soon as they can, right? They'll try to kind of time it correctly to bob and weave the social pressure, right, from the court of public opinion. But they'll, as soon as they can, they'll try to minimize the impact of what that person said or did as much as they possibly can. And to draw a good comparison, right, take Mini Lad and EDP, right? Both of these people were very, very popular in their little niche, but they weren't like worldwide. You feel what I'm saying? Millions upon millions of fans, front page every single day popular. They were popular to their own little niche groups. So when you see how people reacted to both of them, right? With Mini Led, he used to be in like the public eye. When you go on your YouTube front page, it's not that many people making videos about what Mini Led said and did, right? But EDP is now smack dab, you feel me, in the eye of the storm because he made his return back to YouTube, whatever, whatever. So basically, what I'm saying is keep in mind, Mini Led used to be, you feel me, right there, smack dab in the public eye. EDP is currently in the public eye, right? Compare EDP and Mini Lad to like Asmongold and PewDiePie, right? You'll start to notice that even though negativity is negativity, bad is bad, people will always try to quantify and try to put it on a little spectrum because in their mind, one thing is worse than the other, right? To them specifically. And even though they do not empathize with the negatively impacted demographic, in their mind, they are allowed to kind of put things on a pedestal, right? Now, I'll put it to you this way. Yes, you could say that grooming a child, right? Because a child being harmed is objectively worse than your feelings being hurt by a certain YouTuber saying and doing something you don't want them to say and do, even if it's a slur, even if you feel me, it's something cruel and unusual, whatever, whatever. Cool. You could argue that. But the comparison only makes sense if the person you're speaking to, right, the demographic you're speaking to, are people that have both been groomed and have had to deal with, a highly influential content creator dropping slurs or something like that, or like spewing racist rhetoric. So if I have actively dealt with both of those things, it makes sense for you to say, okay, well, which one is worse? Obviously I should prioritize me being groomed, right? Like if I'm a teenager, I should obviously prioritize feelings about being groomed. But I have not personally experienced both of those things due to these content creators. I've only experienced the slur, which means me being upset about this makes perfect fucking sense. I don't need to be upset about some other YouTuber I don't know about potentially grooming somebody. Because if I don't know about MiniLad and I don't know about EDP, right? Or neither one of them are like actively, you feel what I'm saying, a problem because they're being taken care of by other forces. There's literally no reason for me to like hold on to this anger, right? Because they're done for it. Mini Lad is no longer operating on the platform like that. EDP is no longer operating on a platform like that. And every time they try to come back, somebody notices in some way, shape, or form, and they say something about it, and they eventually get kicked off the platform or something like that, right? If the situation is different now, cool. We can deal with that as it comes. But the bottom line is there's no reason for me to be actively bothered in any way, shape, or form about EDP and MiniLad because they're already dealing with the consequences. But on the flip side, people like Asmongold, people like PewDiePie, right? Their fan bases actively swarmed everybody and did everything they could to minimize the impact of what they did and to make sure they got back to success, back to being rich and back to being the biggest people on the platform or some of the biggest people on the platform as soon as they possibly could. So like when you talk about consequences, right? In the grand scheme of things, again, there's no reason to be consistently bothered by people like EDP and Minilag because they already got taken care of. And every time they try to make a return, they get taken care of. Right? That's out of my power. That's neither here nor there. But as a black person, you feel what I'm saying. who's knowledgeable on certain things when it comes to world history, when it comes to economics, you feel what I'm saying? When it comes to psychology, you feel me, sociology, et cetera, being impacted by these things and then becoming more educated over the years in regards to these topics, it's like obviously I have the mind to be aware of like, oh, this person is on a platform. And it's not just a case of, oh, they said and did something I didn't like. It's a fucking compilation video of PewDiePie saying the N word. So like you gotta understand, like if a person is able to do that and still make that much money, what are they spending their money on? How do we know this motherfucker isn't like giving his money to ICE agents and shit? Like we don't fucking know, and that's the problem with like certain people having money. We didn't already seen the Epstein files, right? We have no fucking idea how many YouTubers and Twitch streamers there are in the Epstein files. You don't know. We have no fucking idea. It's so many different actors, actresses, and politicians that have been spoken about in the tiny, teeny, tiny fraction of the Epstein files that got released. Y'all genuinely believe from the bottom of your hearts that none of the YouTubers, none of the Twitch streamers, none of the people who was, popular on Instagram or Twitter or whatever, you genuinely believe that the same people who were behind certain microtransactions, the same people who were behind what is it, the Pizzagate QAnon thing, the same people who got caught purposefully pushing conservative rhetoric on social media specifically to make it harder for victims of their weird trafficking ring to get caught. You mean to tell me you genuinely from the bottom of your heart believe that they don't have any of y'all favorite asshole content creators involved in this? None of the people on the platform that manage to say and do crazy stuff but continue to be rich, not get banned off the platform, literally just not banned. They didn't get their videos taken down. They didn't get banned off the platform. They just out here living, still making money, still good. You mean to tell me y'all don't think none of these content creators are directly connected to any of this? Or you're not drawing a connection between how certain content creators operating under a certain pattern of behavior, a pattern of behavior in belief, or specifically the belief, right? Because not all times, you can't at all times determine if a person's quote unquote problematic behavior, right? Like if they say the word retarded, right? You can't always say like, oh, just because a person said, the word retarded, that, they just can't be trusted ever around people who are special needs. They might be a genuinely kind-hearted person when it matters, right? But when you see that a person's pattern of belief, right? If they try to defend the use of the word retarded, right? Because there's a difference. Maybe they just don't know and they don't care because nobody ever explained it to them. But once you explain it to them, they might care, right? And that's the distinction I'm trying to make. People who know, they've had people explain it to them, but they don't care. That's the belief system, right? That's now your belief system. You're actively defending that. So people who have a certain belief system that is identical to the belief systems of people in the Epstein files, y'all genuinely believe that these two things aren't like straight up connected, or at the very least you don't see how that's a serious problem. Like people who have certain types of like real quote unquote, oh, it's just offensive humor, you know what I'm saying, y'all are just too sensitive. No, I understand the difference between a slur, right, or like, passive hate speech, like you're trying to be subtle with your hate speech, versus something like gallows humor. The reason why like so many black people, right, and certain white people can get away with making like, racial jokes is literally because they're smart enough to understand the dynamic. They have actual black friends, so they understand the nuance. So when they go to make quote unquote, oh, black people be like this and then white people be like that, the shit be relatable and funny sometimes, if not most of the time, because it's coming from people that actually either are black or people of color, or people that are actually real life friends with people of color. So when they're joke when they say their jokes, the shit lands because it's genuinely relatable on both sides of the fence. But when you have people like, you feel what I'm saying, like what's the one dude? Andrew Schultz, right? When you have motherfuckers like that trying to, do the racial humor and like, and then you had a other dude being like, I'm cool with a little bit of racism, right? A lot of times that humor not gonna fucking land because how do I tell the difference between you and somebody who genuinely mean that shit from the bottom of your heart? Because you could say you joking, oh, I'm kidding, I'm joking, but then you have people online who make them same type of jokes and they just aren't as careful. Like Nick Fuentes, for example. Y'all be having identical fucking humor sometimes. Like conservative humor really be going crazy. And then people like Nick Fuentes will turn around and because he's not as careful as your favorite comedian or he's not as careful as your favorite content creator, he'll also say something like, your body, my rules. That's some rapist shit, brother. Like, brother, ugh. What's that, brother? Right? And that's not debatable. That's some rapist shit. Like you gotta come on now. Like that's real life rape culture. That's rape ideology. That's it's no question about it. So if we understand that humor, right, coming from people who are on the conservative or the wanna be neutral. Oh, I'm a centrist. It's bad on both sides and all of that BS. It's like if we know that humor, right, over and over and over again leads to people doing certain things and saying certain stuff when they're not being careful, why do y'all keep attributing this to like, oh, it's just a joke, instead of attributing it to people being careful? They're not good people who are just telling jokes. They're terrible people who are careful not to say the same stuff that Nick Fuentes said because they already saw how people online reacted. And a lot of people like to pretend like they're invincible, right? And this is the thing that be making me so mad. People love to pretend they're invincible in response to social pressure online and peer pressure in the court of public opinion. Oh, I don't care, that's online stuff. I was born in the 80s, and all of this other BS. But the reality is, y'all didn't see like people on that other side, people who be, you feel me, doing a little too much, especially when it come to talking about, rape culture, when it come to making AI pictures of kids or AI pictures of people in general, right? Like suggestive content and stuff like that, people who be having that quote unquote offensive humor, but really you just trying to find a subtle way to call somebody a slur. And like all of that. Why do y'all constantly attribute it to like, oh, it's just innocence or oh, that person is just, whatever, whatever, when it's clear over and over again that like on one hand, people they just being careful. And then on the other hand, it's like, why do y'all constantly pretend like you don't care about that when we have all repeatedly seen time and time again, because I got ADHD, so I'll be trying to like make sure my points is shits, then I can like actually remember them. But like, yeah, on the other hand, why are people constantly pretending like they're not actually intimidated? Or, right? Why are you pretending that your lack of fear actually means something when we've constantly seen people lose sponsorships? We've seen people lose their jobs. And the answer, right? Because that's not a rhetorical question. And the answer is because people like PewDiePie, people like Asmongold, they continue to operate on these platforms without significant consequences. So if there's always a millionaire or a fucking billionaire or some random person who look like they got money or they're popular on social media, as long as there's enough people who are saying and doing all of that inhumane shit, like Nick Fuentes, for example, right? As long as there's enough assholes, as long as there's enough Charlie Kirks, as long as there's enough Nick Fuentes, as long as there's enough Asmongold, right? Those are people who are high on the spectrum of like, you feel what I'm saying, high politicized content. But then there's also people who are on the low end of politicized content. People like PewDiePie who just said something, right? Oh, they dropped a slur and oh, I didn't mean it that way. That's not who I am. I just thought of a word, the worst word I could say, and then I said it. Don't pay attention to the fact that there's a compilation video of me dropping the N word on social media. Don't pay attention to, me paying those dudes on the Fiverr account or whatever to say anti-Semitic things. Don't pay attention to the Nazi-esque clothing I was promoting at one time. Don't pay attention to none of that. That's not important, right? There are people who are low on the like they're on the low end of the spectrum of political because they don't specifically call people, you feel what I'm saying? What is it? They're not specifically calling people Zionist and this, that, and the third on social media lately, right? They're not specifically saying, oh, I'm a Republican or I'm a Democrat or this or that, or, leftists and liberals. They're not specifically saying those things. So you argue that it's not political and you argue that the impact is not really all that big a deal, but they're still on the spectrum. Right? They're still on the spectrum of those individuals. So as long as you got people who are highly politicized, right? People who are highly aggressive, people who are highly offensive, right? As well as people who are just, oh, I'm just an entertainer. I'm just here playing, video games, and I know that I'm rich and I'm very popular, and and stuff like that. But that's all it is. That's where it stops. You feel me? There's nothing wrong with that. I'm just out here trying to feed my family like everybody else. And it's like on paper that shit sound good, but right, but we saw as like black people and as people of color and even a lot of white people and people who are like white passing, right? I want everybody to really think about this for a second. When Obama was in office, politically speaking, people were angry, but the hate crimes we were dealing with, it wasn't Gestapo. You feel what I'm saying? Like it wasn't, oh, the Nazis are back and everybody got to get armed and we all got to, you feel what I'm saying? It wasn't that. Like it was things that was like it was a hair's breadth away from being full blown. You feel what I'm saying? Like invasion, like we got to be careful. It was a lot of like incidents that got swept under the rug. Obviously, shit was still bad for us. Obviously, a lot of, women dying during childbirth, a lot of medical malpractice for black people and people of color. You feel what I'm saying? Like we in there. You feel me? Like little black girls, little brown girls going missing and stuff, little black boys and little brown boys going missing. You feel what I'm saying? Like understanding that, all right, if most white women voted for Trump and they have been voting for people like Trump for generation after generation, what does that mean for the fact that most teachers have been, white women, right? And that black boys are statistically one of the most likely demographics to be purposefully left behind in education as early as pre-K, right? The school to prison pipeline disproportionately affecting black boys, right? Understanding that, yes, it affects black people disproportionately, but even more than that, it affects black boys disproportionately. So it's like understanding all of those things leading up to that, right? Like leading up to Donald Trump's presidency. It's like we understood that shit was happening, but like now it's gone from like covert and person to person, people pressing charges, certain people getting exposed on the internet. Now it's like every single day it's a new Karen getting exposed for like calling somebody a slur. It's a brand new white person somewhere, or an Asian person, or somebody somewhere, somebody who is Israeli, getting exposed because they touched kids. It's a pastor. Like every day. And it's like, I understand the whole, oh, if you go looking for it, you'll find it. But I like to stay briefed on current events. Like I got people in my family that's in the army. You feel what I'm saying? People that's in the Marines, people who used to be police officers. So your concept of like, oh, you're just feeding too much into it. No, this is exactly how much you're supposed to feed into it. You're supposed to care about current events. You don't, oh, you stop getting political. No, you're supposed to be politically aware. You're supposed to be an educated individual. But like because of all of the that's been going on, it's like people try to act like there isn't this abrupt rise in, like, you feel me, a lot of the racial like the hate crimes are not racial, but like specifically things like centered around anything that could be seen as a real life hate crime, or is like Nazism, rape culture. You feel what I'm saying? Like, and people keep saying, oh, that's just conservatism. But like, if it's evil, it's evil. If the impact you consistently have is like, you feel what I'm saying, then eventually the pattern got to be spoken on. Like, we got to admit something. So basically, like, just to make sure that it doesn't get too far away from my original point, so many people try to pretend like a lot of this stuff came out of nowhere, that people are being political for no reason, or you feel what I'm saying? Like, but obviously, right? And specifically about content creators who have money operating under certain patterns of belief systems and all of that. If we saw how Donald Trump being in office and his constituents kind of spreading out and saying what they wanted to say, doing what they wanted to do, being incredibly, offensive, but really using slurs and getting caught funneling money away from anything that seemed like it had something to do with black and brown people. Like, we saw it happen. We saw them come into office. We saw them destroy everything. We saw how them, basically being a megaphone for inhumane ideologies eventually it seemed to empower millions of other people to like get real comfortable and casual about saying and doing the same stuff. So if we saw it happen in office, why are we as a collective trying to act like PewDiePie and Asmongold continuing to be popular, continuing to make money, whatever, whatever, isn't, you feel me, the same thing? Because it most definitely is in all the ways that count, right? Not just it's the same thing across the board, but it's the same thing in all the ways that count. The impact that this shit has is going to be the exact same in all of the ways that count. And the worst part about it is when you see politicians doing this, it targets adults who actually pay attention to politics. But when you see content creators like Asmon Gold doing this, it targets y'all children. That's the difference. That's the only real difference, right? And I watch people like Papa Gut, right? I watch people like him. I get it. Critical thinking skills, emotional intelligence, empathy, social calibration, self awareness. You feel what I'm saying? Throw some kindness up in there. I get it. I try to follow certain content creators that try to be a bit more neutral and to really see, but it's like y'all gotta admit, on a political level, it affects adults, but on a social media entertainment site type level, it affects the kids, the older teenagers, and the young adults who don't know no better. Because again, y'all keep saying, "Oh, stop being political, stop being political." You are not politically aware. You are not educated on this topic. It does not interest you. You have an aversion to getting political. Okay, you admit that. We understand that. You don't want to get political. We heard you all the bajillions of times that y'all said y'all don't want to get political. But that means someone else is going to dictate your concept of politics for you. And that's exactly what happens when people like PewDiePie and Asmongold were able to continue. And I'm not bringing up PewDiePie because like I actively want him to get taken down right now. Remember when I said earlier, Mini Lad is no longer in like the main public eye. But if he ever popped up back on the platform, we already know what would happen because it happened before. Same thing with EDP. EDP is now smack dab in the middle of the eye of the storm, right? Because he tried to pop back up on the platform. PewDiePie and Asmongold are basically the same example. PewDiePie, I have not seen him on this platform in the main smack dab in the eye of the storm in a long ass time. But then again, I'm not subscribed to him anymore, right? I'm not subscribed to anybody that be doing collabs with him. So I'm less likely to see his content, right? So to me, I don't consider PewDiePie a right now issue. I'm not trying to get him taken down or canceled or none of that. I'm just using what happened as one of many examples and trying to draw a comparison between somebody who was in the public eye, for something they said or did, back then versus somebody who's in the public eye because of something they've been saying and doing lately. And that's PewDiePie versus, you feel what I'm saying, Asmongold. So like when I talk about these issues, y'all gotta understand. It's like PewDiePie is what led up to Asmongold. You got to understand, like, even if Asmongold has been on the platform for a minute, people like PewDiePie calling that one dude a nigger straight up, having compilation videos of him saying, variations of the N word, all of that. That is what led up to people like Asmongold being as hated as he is right now. That's what led up to a lot of these behaviors. And it's not just PewDiePie, right? It's not like he's the criminal mastermind. He's the master of the racism. Like that's not what I'm saying. I'm literally just saying PewDiePie is one of many content creators who said and did crazy stuff that was like straight up slur, straight up, you feel me, not just offensive, but like stuff that's actually harmful, right? Perpetuating certain belief systems and narratives. He is one of many content creators that was able to say and do some crazy stuff, then remain on the platform to continue making his money, one way or the other. And because of that, right, people like him, right, people like Keemstar, right, like really think, go down the list of all of the wild situations we've been dealing with over the past 10, 15 years on YouTube, right? The sniper wolves. You feel what I'm saying? Even people like CC and Zaza with the Kingsman situation on Twitch, people like them, it's all coming from like the same weird ass echo chamber. People who, oh, I don't want to get political, or I don't want to, I literally have family that live in Lebanon or whatever the fuck. Like people who operate under that pattern of, oh, I don't get political until they get political. But then they don't want to be political. Like it's political, but I'm not trying to be political. Like I'm gonna say something that's political, but I'm not trying to be political. Or people who are quote unquote just entertainers and they quote unquote make a mistake. Fine, that's what you're saying. You saying you made a mistake. Fine, but the fact that people who make mistakes that are this impactful to the communities manage to remain on the platform and continue making money, that's what makes a lot of people feel comfortable in the long run to say what they want to say. Because if Asmongold can do it and continue to be on Twitch, why can't I? Like, let me go on Twitch right now and say a bunch of dumb shit out my mouth about how women this and women that and females and or shit. Let me turn into Derek Jackson and be cheating on, you feel me, cheating on my shorty or whoever, like cheating on my wife or whatever the whole time. But ladies, a man shouldn't even be breathing the same air as you without thanking you for your presence, ladies. Ladies, look, ladies. The whole time I'm cheating on my wife, feeding you some BS so that you don't pay attention to the fact that I'm cheating on my wife. And you'll never know that it's BS because, again, you care more about being entertained than you do about the people. And as long as y'all care more about being entertained than you care about the people, y'all will continue following people like Asmongold, right? You'll defend him to the ends of the earth because freedom of speech. You'll never realize that people like Asmongold are literally warping your minds into being, you feel me, on the spectrum of antisocial personality disorder and narcissistic personality disorder, so that they don't have to feel alone. I get it. Like a lot of times, regardless of what your skin color is, regardless of what your religion is, you can feel lonely. You can feel betrayed. You feel what I'm saying? Like you can feel like you getting bullied. You can be bullied. I get it. But like on the flip side, y'all really got to start paying close attention and understand that these people, they are not your friends. They are not your allies. They are not your brothers in arms. They are people who will quite literally pivot away from you and throw you under the bus and let you feel me, get eaten up, you feel me, by the tigers the moment something goes left. Because if right now, right, let today or tomorrow, right, really think about it. A person like Asmongold, do you really think he's willing to starve to death or to go back to a 9 to 5 job to continue perpetuating the narratives he's been perpetuating? Eventually it's going to get to a point where him, just like with a lot of other, racist, homophobic, transphobic, whatever content creators, a lot of these people, they will immediately pivot away the moment their money is genuinely in jeopardy. Because let's be real, if you really was like that, you would never ever put out an apology video ever. And think about it. Even if Asmongold hasn't put out an apology video, even if PewDiePie never put out his apology video, there are still countless content creators from all walks of life who didn't put out apology video after apology video after apology video after saying some racist, homophobic, transphobic stuff. Because underneath all of that, it's not a belief system they really hold. They don't really believe it. They just like getting away with saying mean stuff that antagonizes people. That's all it is. And even if we know that, we know the shit is still wrong. So a lot of people still get a little antagonized. They still get a little triggered because they like, bruh, you know that it's wrong. Yeah, we know you trying to antagonize people, but still, like, why even go there? Like, really think of why even go there when you could be rich doing something completely different. You could be rich, not being an asshole, not being transphobic, not being homophobic. It's like, because at the end of the day, just like the content creators we be watching, they care, like people in general care more about being entertained than they care about the people. So as long as what you are hearing is entertaining you enough, right, based off of whatever belief system you had when you clicked onto the video, as long as it's entertaining you enough or it changes your opinion using the right provocation, it's perfectly fine. And if that content creator blows up enough, and there's enough people in the comment section basically saying, you did what you did, deal with the consequences and move on. We'll be here when you get to the other side. As long as there's enough people, kind of saying the right thing, it's like you're not really allowed to be mad at them. And even if you are allowed to be mad at them, it's a time limit. It's a statute of limitations. You got to let people grow. And it's like, but why do they gotta grow and make money on a platform like where they just basically shit on potentially thousands and millions of their fans? Why do they gotta continue to be on this platform? Why can't they take their little bit of change that they had that they made so far and build somewhere else? Like you had your chance to be on this platform, but you said something that was racist, you said something that was transphobic, homophobic, you affected millions of people. You feel what I'm saying? It's a lot of people that feel empowered now to be more racist, to to tell these little racist jokes. It's irresponsible because of how many kids are on this platform, how many teenagers are on this platform. No, you're not expected to do their parents' jobs, but it's like there's still a certain level of personal responsibility and accountability you have, when you post that type of stuff and it makes it out into the world, right? And I'm not exempt from that, but it's like, why do these people get to continue making money on these platforms instead of, being pushed to the side so that people who haven't said or done anything crazy lately can get a, a foot in the door? And it's because at the end of the day, just like on one hand, most people care more about being entertained than they do about the actual people, right? Right or wrong, the people who run this platform care more about revenue than anything else. So as long as the ad revenue is still coming in, as long as y'all keep making reaction videos to Asmongold's content and people know Asmongold's content, like you've actually watched it, right? I haven't watched any of his content myself. I go to other content creators who make social commentary about it, right? And I watch the whole clip from start to finish, right? To make sure I get all the context. Sometimes the clip be a couple of minutes long. Sometimes the clip be like 10 fucking minutes long because, maybe Asmongold was talking about some shit that led up to that part of the conversation, whatever, whatever. So I try to stick around and get context because, I have academic experience in the behavioral sciences. It's important to me to understand context and I understand nuance. So I'm open to conversation, right? But it's like, why are like the bottom line that I keep repeating to myself is like, we know these advertisers only care about the revenue. So as long as y'all keep making their reaction videos to their content and you keep putting a face on shit, like not just Asmongold, but just people in general. As long as you keep putting a face on shit, the advertisers are gonna keep going, oh, well, this person makes content, a bunch of other content creators react to it, and now we have exponentially more ad revenue coming in, specifically because Asmin or PewDiePie, or at the time when he was making, all the gameplay videos and stuff, is like whoever was the person, whoever was the guy who was saying and doing racist stuff or transphobic or homophobic stuff or anti-Jewish people stuff, like whatever the case may be, whoever was making the content like that around the time, whoever was their favorite, I'm just an entertainer, or a person who really was heavily into politics, whoever it was at the time, that person makes the video, and a bunch of other people make the videos in response, and now there's a bunch of ad revenue coming in. So it's like it's basically a double-edged sword, or it's like a rock, it's like being caught between a rock and a hard place. Because no matter what, people are going to keep reacting and going to keep responding. Like even a video I'm making now, somebody might like if this video does numbers in any way, shape, or form, somebody's gonna go look up Asmongold's channel and try to spell it right and be like, who was he talking about? Let me go over there. So it's like it's almost like if you're aware and you want to speak on it in any way, shape, or form, you are always in some way, shape, or form kind of part of the problem. Like the solution still contains part of the problem inside of it, right? So if you wanna like, yeah, so if you wanna be the change and you wanna create, positive, uh, uh, what is it? Like a better standard. There we go. If you wanna facilitate positive change and you wanna like create a better standard for how people absorb entertainment and shit on social media, it's like you have to consistently run the risk of essentially either attracting the wrong attention to yourself, giving the wrong attention to the wrong person, or like, you feel me, or essentially like saying one little thing wrong, or maybe a point that you made wasn't as well placed as you thought because at the time, you feel me, you didn't have enough information, right? Like there's a very good chance that the points that I've made thus far can be disputed by a very specific set of, you feel me, statements or whatever the fuck. But with that being said, it's like that's kind of the trade-off, right? And it's like no matter what, now social media has become a place where it's not really about the people. It's not really about what you intend to do. It's not really about the fact that you're trying to open up a dialogue and just to get people to have better standards for themselves. It's about the fact that how dare you? You dare make a video and name drop somebody that I like? You dare constructively criticize anybody or anything when you yourself are not perfect? Look at that. Look at your fan. Your fan got dust on it. Look at your blanket. Your blanket is wrinkled. Hmm? Hmm? You got on a bonnet. You're a grown man with a bonnet on. You're sassy. Hmm? It's always going to be a bajillion and one things, right? Like me saying shits earlier. Somebody gonna be like, "Oh yeah, he biting dashy flow." I bet if we go to his Twitch, he say shits a lot. He biting dashy, he biting dashy or Jetro. Like, oh, he got the bonnet on and he got hair and shit. Or look at him, he showing off his arms. That's Jetro shit. With the bonnet and it. Come on, yo. Like it's always gonna be something that somebody has to say, right? That basically disputes a specific point that I made if you're playing word chess. But if you're not playing word chess and you're not playing social chess and you're genuinely trying to open up that dialogue and really, you feel what I'm saying? Like really think about what different content creators are saying. I'm not the only person who said this. Jacksepticeye pretty much had the same conversation about Mr. Beast, and y'all hated him for that shit. And then boom, it happened. Now everybody like, damn, Jack was right. So do I gotta go through the ringer? Do I gotta get put through you feel what I'm saying? Is it just my time to get drugged through the mud? You feel what I'm saying? Or is my video just not gonna go anywhere? You feel me? It's like, is it really my turn? Or can we finally get to a point as like multiple communities coming together to just say, damn, every content creator we have ever watched, every content creator we ever fucked with on this platform or any platform is a person that is a whole human being. They are capable of doing bad things. And if they do bad things, what type of response are we going to have? Are we going to minimize their impact and constantly tell other people that they just need to hurry up and forgive them? Are we going to put a statute of limitations or like some type of time limit on how long people are allowed to be affected, how long people are allowed to be upset? Or are we going to get to a point where we understand different shit affects different people differently? And the best thing to do is just to have empathy and be like, dang, it didn't affect me like that because I'm not black. Like if a white person just flat out told me, yo, I ain't gonna lie, I still be watching Mini Lad, I still be watching PewDiePie, I still be watching EDP because I just don't get it. I'm gonna be like, all right, you're telling me you do not get it. All right, let's have a conversation about it. You still like Asmongold because you're not black and the stuff he says don't personally affect you, and you weren't raised in an environment where you were given the tools necessary to fully like just automatically empathize with other people of like different skin colors. Okay, that's some shit that makes sense. I'm a psychology major. Like it makes perfect sense for you to get to a point where like you just don't fucking get it and you don't have empathy because nobody ever gave you the tools necessary to do so. There are gaps in knowledge that are, you feel me, justifiably large when you live in certain echo chambers. But if you say that instead of like, oh, y'all just dragging it, that happened this many years ago, whatever, whatever, people can change. It's like then you're not really taking into consideration why people are truly upset. You're just hyper focusing on the fact that they're not over it as quickly as you would like them to be. There's almost always more to the plot than that. So like I just want everybody to have a nuanced conversation about this and really get to a point where instead of just being like, oh, you're a bad person if you were glad that Charlie Kirk is, no longer with us. You're a bad person if this. You start to understand how intense human suffering can be when a person doesn't look or sound the way you do. Just take into consideration how intense the suffering can be when the person does not look or sound like you, or that person doesn't have the money you have, or they didn't have the privileges you had growing up, right? Because it's fun to joke about, "Oh, you had a fridge with an ice maker in it? You have name brand ketchup? You have real cheese that has a rind on the outside and not just cheese product?" Yeah, it's fun to joke about that type of stuff. It's cool, but it really does change the way you live your life sometimes. It really does change who you are on the inside. Sometimes a person could have all the different experiences in the world and they're perfectly fine. Y'all don't have no problems communicating. But then other times, right? A difference in education, a difference in religious beliefs, something, anything could contribute to you or that person harming someone else and then having no fucking concept of it whatsoever. You cannot always trust your instincts. Sometimes you really just got to sit down and just like I just did, you got to sit down and get your thoughts out. You got to take that risk. And if somebody responds to some shit in a way you don't like, hey, that's just you taking that risk. Be prepared. Try to bring together some of your friends and family to like help you navigate this. You feel what I'm saying? And in closing, I want to say this. Over 54% of the adult population in the United States has reading and comprehension at or below the sixth grade level. About 44% of the adult population has reading and comprehension at or below the eighth grade level. Even back in 2019, the Department for Education Statistics released data showing there was an approximate maximum of 12.9% of the tested demographic with high literacy skills, right? I need y'all to understand. Most people in America and potentially most people on earth, literally, right? On earth, they most likely do not have the cognitive ability and or the education necessary to handle information responsibly. Yes, that means you. Yes, that means me. We all have to do a better job at checking ourselves before we wreck ourselves and accepting the fact that maybe we aren't as educated as we thought. So let's ask more questions, right? The same way that I brought up concerns of mine and then I asked questions and I said I'm open to conversation and went through the motions. You got to be ready to be on that type of time. Don't be so quick to be snarky and be like, well, if you can say, cracker this and crack, why can't I call you a watermelon munching monkey coon? Like, why can't I? Like, don't be flippant Don't be flippant and petty, right? Act like y'all got some sense. Do your best. And as always, it's Tommy the Wolf Boy, aka Pretty Blicky, aka Slick Blick, aka your favorite baby father. Love yourself. Because if you don't love yourself, how the hell are you supposed to know if somebody else really love you or not? And be yourself. Because being somebody else takes way too much effort, and we all have enough on our plate already. It's not goodbye. It's just see you later. Because as always, I'll see you later. So see you later.